So this is an example similar to several of the projects, because we all have different problems. We're going to do all 4 pages together, okay? So on that first page, you guys are going to write the problem just like it is, and then we're going to identify the variables, write the system, and give me the answer. So I'm going to show you guys how to use the calculator to find your answer today. If you don't have a calculator later and you don't have time to find your answer today, as long as all 3 methods you get the same answer, you're correct. But I wanted to show you guys how to use the calculator also. All right, so this problem is different than everyone's problem. No one has this problem for the project. This problem says, Kristen spent $131 on shirts. Fancy shirts cost $28 and plain shirts cost $15. If she bought 3 more plain shirts than fancy shirts, then how many of each kind did she buy? So this is the tricky part, I think, for some of us, is writing that system. And that's what I saw yesterday on the test. So if I look here, I know I need 2 unknowns, right? So what variables should we use? You want to use X and Y? S, Y, S. Ooh, shirts, but what am I looking for? Just one kind of shirt? Fancy shirts and plain shirts, right? So we have 2 different kinds of shirts. So that's what I want us to do first. I want you to identify what your variables are. I don't care what letters you use. You can be creative. You can be mathematical and use X and Y. That is completely up to you, okay? But you do have to tell me what your variables mean. So here, do y'all want to use F for fancy and P for plain? Sure. Is that okay? All right, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to say F is my number of fancy shirts. And P is my number of plain shirts. All right, if you're unsure of what your problem, what your unknowns are, go look at the question. It says, how many of each kind did she buy? Each kind of what? Each kind of shirt. And I picked this problem intentionally because it's a little more vague, because I said, how many of each kind did she buy? So my unknowns are the kinds of shirts, okay? So I don't know how many fancy, and I don't know how many plain shirts Kristen bought. So far, so good? Okay. So then I need to write a system. So to write this system, I see, well, Kristen bought 131 shirts. Sorry, $131 on shirts. That's how much she spent in total, right? Fancy shirts cost $28, and plain shirts cost $15. That's going to help me write my first equation. So fancy shirts, F. So if I multiply the number of fancy shirts times how much each one of them costs, 28, that tells me how much she spent just on those fancy shirts, right? All right, and what can I write to find out how much she spent just on the plain shirts? $15. P, because 15 times the number of plain shirts will tell me how much she spent just on the plain shirts, right? And then all together, how much did she spend? $131. So that's my first equation. All right, so in a system, I need at least how many? 2. So I need another equation for the system. So if I look, she bought 3 more plain shirts than fancy shirts. So what I'm saying is, which one did she buy more of? Hold on. She bought more plain shirts, right? So I'm going to say P equals, I'm going to add 3 because it's 3 more. 3 more than what? The fancy shirts, right? Fancy shirts, okay. And then so 3 plus F. That's my system.
Well, you can do substitution.
We can do substitution. We're actually going to do all three. But you like, so you may see this, and remember that last page, I want you to tell me what's the best method, right? And you may tell me, well, I think it's substitution because one of my equations is already solved for a variable, right? That could be, right? Or you could tell me graphing because, and we're going to graph it here in a minute. You might find graphing to be easier, right? Okay. So now I want to show you how to use a calculator to solve this problem. We've done this before. So I want everyone to use their calculator. I'm going to add a new page. I want everyone to open a new graphs page. All right. So my first equation says 28f plus 15p equals 131. So how am I going to graph that equation in standard form? What do I need to do? Backspace. Delete once and go down to relation. Perfect. So then I'm going to graph 28. Ooh, can I use f? No. So if you're using your calculator, you have to change your variables to what? X and Y, because that's what our graphs are labeled as. You can change that in your calculator. I'm not going to show you how to do that. It's easier just to change it to X and Y for now. So I'm going to say 28. Can we use X as the fancy shirts? Is that okay? Plus 15, Y are my plain shirts, equals 131. Okay. So far, so good? Does anyone need help?
No, ma'am.
Fantastic. So then if you hit enter, you can push tab or control G, whichever you're more comfortable with, to go back to the equation line. And we're going to graph P equals 3 plus F. But what was P again? The Y. So we're going to say Y equals 3 plus X. All right. So then, how am I going to find the intersection? Where do I go first? Menu. 6 is analyze the graph. Number 4 is intersection. And I'm going to go to the left, click to highlight, and scroll right, and click again. Where do those two intersect? 2, 5. So I'm going to go back here. So I used my calculator to solve the problem. My solution is 2, 5. So that tells me what? How many fancy shirts did I buy? So that's 2 fancy shirts. Oh wait, I wasn't buying those. Kristen was buying those. How many did Kristen buy? All right, and then how many plain shirts did she buy?
5.
So Kristen bought 2 fancy shirts and 5 plain shirts. And on your project, if you would, please be sure to use complete sentences anytime you're giving me an answer or explanation. Okay? I kind of minimized it here because we have a little bit of space. You'll have more space on your project. All right. So the next part says to graph it. Oh, where did my graph go? Hold on just a second. I'm just going to sketch it. You guys have graph paper on your paper in front of you. So I'm just going to sketch this kind of freehand. Bear with me. It'll be okay. So to graph it, I think graphing it can be challenging for some of the problems. So I'm going to go through like step by step what to do. Okay? So which equation do you think is going to be easier to graph? The 28f plus 15p equals 131 or p equals 3 plus f? The p, because that's already solved for y, right? So let's graph that one first. So there on your graph paper, I'm gonna have to sketch mine. It's gonna be okay.
Enjoy.
So I'm gonna make my vertical axis the number of plain shirts. I'm gonna make my horizontal axis the number of fancy shirts. Right? So what do you think we should count by on your boxes? Should every box be 1? Maybe? Yeah? Because if I were doing this for my projects, could you cut the graph down and make it smaller if you needed? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make every box 1. So let's go ahead and label our scale. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then our fancy shirt, should we count by 1 again? All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I need more space, I can draw out more space. If you need more labeled, you could label further out, right? So for that first graph, it says P equals 3 plus F. So where do I begin on this graph? At 3. And then what's the slope? 1. My slope is 1, so I'm going to go up 1 over 1. Up 1 over 1. Up 1 over 1. And then use a straight edge.
Look at calculator side.
You could use the side of your calculator. I didn't put rulers out. And I'll bring y'all some rulers. And connect all of your dots. Yes, sir. Yes, let me write you a pass.
Sorry, just make wrong.
Yeah, it's like I can barely turn my head left and not right.
When I have the
I think like this.
Oh, that's a problem. Let me write you a
I
pass.
popped my head for that.
Alright, don't touch me.
So let's take a look at that second equation. I think, flat on your desk. Say it again. It is. So I think, in my personal opinion, that graphing from standard form can be the trickiest. Because if I look at that equation, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it here in this box. I did that one in oh, I got my colors inverted. I apologize. Oh, okay. So I've got, what is it, 28F plus 15P equals 131. If I solve that for P, so it says P equals like the last one, not only will my y-intercept be a decimal, my slope is also a decimal, right? And not a very nice one. And if I make it the fraction, it's going to be 28 over 15, which I really don't have the space to count up 28 and over 15, right? It's just not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to approximate, and I already know my answer, so I know if it's close to that intersection, right? So I know that they should intersect here at 2, 5, right? They should intersect right there. I know that they've got to intersect there. Yes? All right. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to solve for the x-intercept. I'm going to solve for the y-intercept. And I'm going to use my ruler to connect the dots. And if it goes through this point, then it's close enough, right? So let's try that. So first, if I want the p-value, what has to be 0? F or p? F. So I want to know if I buy just the plain shirts and I spend $131, how many did I buy, right? So first I'm going to say 28 times 0 plus 15p equals 131. All right, so that's going to give me 28 times 0 is 0, right? So that's 15p equals 131. So if I divide both sides by 15,
It's 8.73333.
8.7, 3 repeating, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that p-axis. I'm going to go 8.7. That's between 8 and 9, right? But it's closer to which number? 9 by just a little bit, right? So it's going to be like, like about right there, right? Is that okay? So we can approximate a little bit because your boxes are pretty small that we're counting, right? So it's okay to kind of approximate a little bit. All right, so now let's do the same thing, but let's find, well, where does it cross on the fancy axis? So if I buy no plain shirts, how many fancy shirts can I buy, right? So then I'm going to say 28 times fancy shirts plus 15 times 0 equals 131. So 15 times 0 is eliminated, right? So I have 28F equals 131. So if I divide both sides by 28, I get fancy shirts equals what's that? What do y'all get? 4.67. So that's going to be between 4 and 5, slightly closer to 5 than 4, right? So like right there. Right? So then use your straight edge to connect the dots that are on your axes, and they should go through that intersection. All right, I do have some graph paper already printed out if y'all wanted to grab some. I'll put it on the back table. That way you can grab it here in a little bit or on your way out. That way you have it just in case you want to work on this project over the break. Just in case. I like how you laugh. Be a good idea. You'll be bored by Wednesday, I promise. All right. Let's take a look at the next method. What was the next one? Elimination? Oh, elimination, my favorite, right? So, I've got my two equations. 28F plus 15P equals 131. And P equals 3 plus F. to solve by elimination, these both have to be in the same form, right? So I could move F. I could move this F to the left side with the P so that P and F are on the same side, couldn't I? Yeah? So let's try that. So if I subtract F from both sides, then I get negative F plus P
Equals 3.
equals 3. That works, doesn't it?
It rhymes.
It rhymes. Hey, it does rhyme.
Negative F plus P.
Equals 3. So now, if I look at my original equation for the first, 28F plus 15P equals 31. And now I have negative F plus P equals 3. Could I multiply this second equation by something so that my F's cancel? What? Well, this one's already got a negative. This is 28. If this were negative 28, those would eliminate, right? They would cancel. So let's multiply this equation by 28. So I want to rewrite right over here. So I've got 28F plus 15P equals 131. And what's going to be 28 times negative F? Negative 28F. Beautiful. And 28 times P
Negative
plus is going to be positive because we have a positive P, right?
28
Positive 28
P.
P equals, and then what's 28 times 3? 84?
Just looks
All right, so now let's add these two equations together. So what's 28F minus 28F? 0, they're eliminated, right? So now I have 15P plus 28P is how many P's? 43? 131 plus 84? 215? So I'm going to divide both sides by 43. So what's 215 divided by 43? Yeah, that's 5 plain shirts. That's what we got before, right? Yes. So now let's plug that back in and solve for fancy shirts. So which equation should we use? The second one? The first time that we did the second one, right? All right, so let's do that. So I've got P equals, but what's P? Sorry. So 5 equals 3 plus F. So then I can subtract 3 from both sides. So 2 is equal to F. Oh, excuse me. So 2 is equal to, so we got 2 fancy shirts again. All right.
My brain's dead.
I'm sorry. So our last method, you all ready for the last method? So let's solve by substitution. So substitution, this problem was kind of set up for substitution, wasn't it? Yes. So I've got 28F plus 15P equals 131. And we had P equals 3 plus F. So if I use substitution, I'm going to substitute. Here we've got P is already solved for, right? So I'm going to substitute 3 plus f for p in that first equation. We're going to plug it in. Right?
I don't like it when you like highlight it, like the color of the.
I think that's kind of neat. The color changes.
It freaks me. It weirds me out.
I'm sorry. So I've got 28f plus 15p equals 131. But instead of p, I was going to write 3 plus f. So now I have 28f. And to get rid of the parentheses, I'm going to distribute. So 3 times 15 is 45. And 15 times f is 15f. Equals 131. We're going to add the f's together, right? We've got like terms. So 15 plus 28 is 43. Plus 45 equals 131. So then I can subtract 45 from both sides. So we have 43f is equal to 86. And if I divide both sides by 43, I get my number of fancy shirts equals, what's 86 divided by 43? 2. Which I already knew the answer to, but it's nice that I got the exact same answer again, right? You want to know all right? Yes, sir.
We should do it.
All right. So finally, what do I need to do to solve for the plain shirts? Yeah, we're going to substitute that f back in, right? So here I've got p equals 3 plus f, but f is what? 2. So p is equal to 5. So I have 5 plain shirts. It's perfect. So do y'all see how we got the same answer all 4 times using the calculator, graphing by hands, by substitution, and by elimination? So then for your last page, all you have to do is tell me which method you preferred for your problem and why. Okay? Even if you liked more than one method, that's fine. Just tell me which one you like slightly more and why. If you can't choose, you can lie to me. Just choose one. Make it up. It's okay. All right.